is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 195. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. Sitting here on a Sunday afternoon, Austin, Texas. It's been a little bit cold outside. How you feeling, my friend?
I'm a little under the weather as well, but that got me good there. Very well done there. Shout out all LiAngelo Ball rap fans, which I am a part of. I'm doing all right, man. You know, we got a smorgasbord of things to talk about here, and some of these things I don't really want to talk about because I wish they weren't happening. So we're gonna power through this with the illness, the scratchy throat here a little bit, and hopefully this resolved itself in a way that we both feel good about it. But excited to get into it.
Yeah, we are a long ways removed from choosing who's bringing what to the Thanksgiving dinner table. Before we get into today's show, just want to remind you all, that's the last time, I promise. Before we get into today's episode, just want to remind you all listening or watching on the YouTube channel that the best way to support the show financially is by downloading the audio version of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, usually there's a auto download switch. You can toggle that on and support the show going forward without having to think about it further. If you want to go the extra mile, you can rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. And if you're watching on the YouTube channel, subscribing to the channel helps us grow the show. You can hit the notification bell to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And of course, on this episode, hit the thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, atone for your sins, wash yourselves clean in the crumbs of the North End. We will get into some preseason crumbs a little later on, but coming off of our Monday afternoon live stream where we were celebrating the green smoke, signifying that Brandon Vazquez is in fact Verde. We mentioned on that stream, fans had the opportunity to go to the Fairmont Hotel downtown, welcome Brandon to the city. And I got to say, like, it was cool to see Trevor tossing pollo and, doing a little pollo dance there. And it looked cold. So shout out to everybody who went out to welcome our newest designated player to Austin.
Yeah, you must have read my mind because that's what I was going to talk about right there. That looked like a really fun event, and Pollo getting up there and getting his first introduction with BV was fantastic to see. So shout out to everyone who made it out there. That was awesome. Way to welcome our boy here to Austin, Texas.
And then, of course, Brandon Vazquez met the media alongside Rodolfo Borrell at Q2 welcome press conference on Tuesday. And, of course, Austin media throng there does not fuck around. So we get right down to it. And Brandon Vazquez really didn't mince words. Like, this is for good reason. A confident young player coming in, asked about what he's learned in his time in MLS, right, with Atlanta and with Cincinnati, his time in Liga MX, in Tijuana's academy system, and then the last season with Monterrey. And, of course, with the U.S. men's national team, he says, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's how to be in the right spot and how to put the ball in the back of the net. And we need both of those things.
That's right. Those are two things that we really appreciate about BV there, man. What a presser this was. I know we're going to get into it a little more here, but holy shit. I'm going through the memory bank trying to think if I've ever seen anything like this. But man, what an absolutely shocker of a presser.
Yeah. Yeah, we have so much to get through here today. Let's go ahead and watch this clip. I will, volume warning, no matter where you're listening, I think this is kind of loud, but this is the video we clipped. It's out on our Instagram as well. That's the latest reel we have posted. But at the end of this press conference, Rodo goes on to thank, of course, the ownership. He brings up Brandon Vazquez's agent and then gets a little emotional at the end. Let's just watch this.
The opportunity to say that it's been an extremely difficult transfer, and I want, but extremely, and again, I want to thank Anthony and the partners, and I also It's something that I never do, but I'm going to mention in this case his agent, Richard Motzkin. I think it's been crucial. And I get emotional because welcome.
It's a perfect place to wrap it up.
So, I mean, look, without any sort of context provided there, my initial reaction was like, holy shit, like Roto thinks this is like the guy. And like that is probably still the case. But we were actually passed a little bit of information from somebody in the know that this deal, right? So Monday was the 6th, right? When this deal was officially announced by the club. We were passed some information that this deal was done between the player, his agent, Monterrey, and Austin on December 28th. And that there was some back and forth between the club and the league having to do with certain rule loopholes is probably not the right way to put it. But there was this back and forth, this tug of war where, like, I guess it didn't seem like, or it seemed like this maybe wouldn't get done in the fashion that the club wanted it to, the everything that they had agreed upon with Monterrey and with Vazquez, and that Richard Motzkin, Brandon's agent, is a lawyer and assisted in getting this done between the club and the league. So I believe, from what we were told, that was why he brought up Mr. Motzkin there, and why Roto was so drained. Because I believe he told Michel Sanchez, Roto that is, that he was on the phone for 5 hours on Christmas Day working on this deal. But it appears to from what we were told, again, not reporting this is just secondhand stuff, but what we were told was that there was a lot more than just 5 hours on Christmas that came between when Austin thought they were going to get this done and when they were finally able to announce it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the emotion there. I really like to see it. Honestly, I know that, Roto was feeling a certain type of way there, but it really just humanizes him, humanizes the impact that he wants to have on this club and how important getting this deal done was, because we were all begging for this DP9. We were begging for it. And we knew in our heart of hearts it was eventually coming, but it had been this long stretch where everyone knew we had to upgrade at the position. And for this deal to take the amount of time, effort, patience, probably frustration to get done, and to see how rewarding it kind of feels to Roto in this moment was absolutely fantastic to see. And as I mentioned before, just like, as we were about to bring this up, I was trying to think of, we've been around all kinds of professional sports the majority of our lives, and a handful of situations where you see the emotion like this from people who are trying to be in their professional setting, using their professional tone, their voice, and everything like that. So I really love to see it. I love to see the connection right there to end it, where it's just like, we got you, bro. And I got you too, bro. And, we're here. So that was powerful. And I was really, I was taken aback at first when you first sent me that clip, but, to have this context surrounding it gives me a bit more insight, and lets me know that this was just something that he was so happy to have done. And you saw the emotions pour out there, and that's awesome to me.
Yeah, man, I think you mentioned, right, because if you weren't watching that clip and you were just listening, you hear that long silence after Roto says he gets emotional until he says welcome to Brandon. And Brandon is the one, like, reached over, put his arm on his shoulder, right? Roto kind of pounds him on the chest a little bit there. And it makes me think too, like, I think it is an advantage, not just everything that Roto brings from his experience, but like, he came to this position from being a coach, from being on the field, being in the shit with his players every single day. So like, he can bring that kind of perspective and I think cultivate those type of relationships with the guys that maybe not all sporting directors, general managers, executives of that nature can. So it
Totally
overall,
agree.
yeah. Again, everything you said about, like, everything you could see on his face, like the beginning of the press conference, it was like, holy, like, Roto looks tired a lot, because we know he's talked about his working hours, like having to communicate with people, not just your scouts, but other clubs and agents and such in Europe and all across the globe. that his hours are crazy, but it seemed like it was to another level here coming out of this Vazquez deal. So congrats to them. Congrats to us as Austin FC fans, because I think this is gonna be great. What's not great? And you hinted at, like, we this is not the first time we have brought up the Sebastián Driussi situation. We talked about it last weekend when we recorded episode 194 live on YouTube. And shout out to Colby Gordon from the Austin American-Statesman. He comes in right away. I believe it was Colby, and he said, Roto, do you expect Brandon to be playing next to Sebastián Driussi on February 22nd? And Roto's answer was, as far as I know, this is the introduction on Brandon Vazquez, so I don't think we need to speak about any other player here. So let's talk about the Driussi update. Overall, nothing has changed in the sense of Driussi is still in Argentina, as we knew last weekend. He still wants to join River Plate. River Plate is in the process of negotiating a deal with Austin. Right. So like last Sunday at this time, we had the Bogert tweet that said that Driussi was, quote, close to joining River Plate. Over this week, we've had a lot of noise being bounced around the space. The majority of that coming from the South American side of this negotiation. There was a rumor that Driussi had texted Anthony Precourt and or Rodolfo Borrell. To be honest, I don't think that was specified which higher up he had texted this message to, but something to the effect of like, I'm not coming back, sell me. He was not at report day yesterday. Of course, all the players reported to St. David's Performance Center on Saturday morning to begin training camp. And then on this morning, we did get another update from Tom Bogert stating that the club has begun disciplinary action. And this is one of the things why I think as we continue as fans to view this negotiation and this, I'm going to stop short of saying disaster because I don't think this is actually a disaster at this point. But as this progresses, keep in mind that the majority of this information is coming from the South American side of the negotiation. And we have already heard bullshit from that side. Number one being a report, I think 2 days ago, it might have been Thursday, coming out of South America saying that Driussi had obtained consent from Austin FC to skip the start of training camp and remain in Argentina, clearly from Tom Bogert. And Tom, right, got the league connections. His report says that not just Austin and the league have begun this disciplinary action. He also said, Bogert that is, that the club will not sell Driussi unless an agreement is reached with River Plate and Austin has a suitable DP replacement lined up. So that also adds an additional, that gives me a little bit more comfort in this deal, knowing that if this gets done, that means Roto has the replacement ready to go. That could also drag this out longer because even if the deal with River Plate comes, we get into a handshake agreement there, then we got to make sure that next DP, because it from Bogert's reporting, one will not happen without the other. So I do want to dive into the CBA rules and talk about what the team and league can do to try to hold a player in Driussi's situation accountable. But what do you got here from the updates we've had over the last 7 days or so?
I'll start on the negotiation side. There's clearly a lot of jockeying going around, and River Plate has been always lingering in this Sebastián Driussi situation saga since he's been here. The return seemed inevitable at some point. Now it's looking more and more like Seba is completely in that camp and ready to head back down there to play for his home, or not his home team, his kids club, like his favorite club of all.
Boyhood club,
yeah,
right.
Boyhood club. That's the word was escaping me there.
Sure.
So Roto's not going to get bullied in this situation. I think you're seeing that right now, specifically when the language is, we will not sell him until we have a replacement that we like set up and ready to go. So they're not, Roto and the partners are not going to let Seba hold us hostage. And they're also not giving the upper hand to River Plate in this situation, because we are going to get into some rules here. And I know you have the date for when the Argentine window closes. So there is a stop point for this. There is a situation where this has to culminate if it's going to come to fruition. So by saying that we have to have a guy lined up behind Seba if we're going to make this sale, I think we're in on the sale.
Yeah.
At this point, like if we are also in on this, we are ready to move on from him. He does not want to be here. I will get into that in a little bit, but like we have a price that we are willing to sell him for.
Yeah.
If River wants to meet it and come get their guy, you can do it. But also at the same time, you have to understand we're not just going to let this dude hold us hostage here, sell him to you, acquiesce to everything that he really wants to happen, and then be put in a position where we're like, how do we fill this giant void from our best player departing the team now? So it's interesting to watch this take place, but I think we have the upper hand here. Like we still have him under contract.
Yeah.
He's not showing up because he wants to get his way here.
Mhm.
So like we're not just going to let him do that, get away with that without disciplinary actions, and then get the move that he ultimately wants. Now on the Seba side, the personal side of it, and my fanhood and everything, this is incredibly disappointing. And I understand that Seba it wants to be there. I get that. And if that's what he truly wants, then okay, I'm ready to move on from him too, because it'll just get uglier and uglier as this draws out. If he really, really does not want to be here, if that text is true, what have you. And the reason I'm so disappointed about this is because, again, I wanted him to be a part of this Austin 2.0, 3.0, whatever version of this club we're at now, because he went through the hell with us. Like he was in the shit with us. And like to be able to come out on the other side where now we're seeing this talent floor be raised significantly. We're putting impactful players around him potentially is just incredibly disappointing, because I felt like that could have been a very rewarding situation for not only him, but the fans as well. Because remember, anytime in sports, it's a what have you done for me lately kind of situation.
Yeah.
If you had talked to any sort of fan of Austin FC after the 2022 campaign, nobody would be like, yes, let's move on from Seba right now.
Well, we were talking. Leeds offered what, 15 million or whatever it was, and all of us were like, "Fuck no!"
Yeah, get away.
Not after
Exactly.
that.
And now 2 years later, you fast forward, and it's like, get out of here. Sell them for whatever you can. I'll even take a $1 million profit, which was the $7 million offer that River Plate has when we played $6 million for him initially. So like, it is very much a what have you done for me recently, and I just felt like, if the thing that he had done for us was to stick through this rebuild, this disastrous campaign of the last 2 seasons, and then come out the other side, you're a hero in Austin. You know what I mean? Like this team turns around and everything, you're the best player. So it is just a really incredibly disappointing situation. And I feel like I've finally gotten to the point where I know that this is inevitable. We just have to dot the I's, cross the T's, figure out the exact figures, and then make sure that we have his replacement ready to step in so that we're not once again behind the 8 ball with our roster construction heading into the preseason.
And I do think there is a non-zero chance that we have to start the season with 2 DPs because Seba is just not coming back, like Emmanuel Reynoso's situation.
Yeah.
And I do want to get there. I'm pretty much with you, where like, again, like the first reaction, of course, is like, even with how bad he's been, and even the off the field stuff where like you're suspended and watching the team from home and retweeting angry fan tweets at you, and you're blocking everybody who sends you a mean tweet and what have you. It's just like, I don't know, man. Like somebody I very much trust once told me, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And look, man, like for 8 months, he was a different person than he's been the rest of his tenure here in terms of the on the field production. And I also still think, like, through all this, I think it will be a long time. I hope it's not, but I think it will be many, many years before we have another player on this roster that has as much raw soccer talent as Sebastián Driussi does. Like, I love all the guys we have on the team right now. Very excited going forward, but just in terms of his individual soccer talent, like I think it's going to be a real challenge for us to top that, at least in the near future. But if you don't want to be here, then let's ride, man. Like, get him out of here. Again, I don't expect Roto to be bullied. I want River to accept our number, right? Because we have such a big investment in him, and you would think that he would also understand that if Austin FC, the royal we here, if we want to be the early favorites in Las Vegas for petty kings of 2025 and 2026, we can pick up your fucking option and make sure you make no money from soccer over the next 2 years. So people can think what they want about Rivers' leverage here and Driussi's leverage. I'm with you. I don't think they have much. And you got to come pay, or you got to come meet us on our side of this divide right now on the bridge, so to speak. So let's real quick what the CBA says about these fines. This is an interesting situation, or it could develop into one. Section 8 or Article 8, Section 3 of the collective bargaining agreement is reporting to a team. And that says a player shall be available and promptly report for and fully participate in all of the training and practice sessions, meetings, and games of the team. And if invited, same thing with the All-Star game, etc. Then you go down in the CBA to Section or Article 20, Section 1 of the collective bargaining agreement. That is discipline for just cause. Line B is failure to appear. And that says that players will be fined for the first instance in which they fail to appear to a scheduled practice, medical appointment, appearance, team meeting, or other team function. For Driussi's salary, that first offense will be a $1,000 fine. So, a haircut for Seba, that's nothing. But in item 4 here, it says that players may be disciplined for each recurring incident thereafter. Additional infractions will be evaluated on an incident-by-incident basis and subject to increased fines up to and including suspension without pay and or termination. The last part of that, that's not really in the cards because that's how Driussi and River Plate win. He just goes for free. But it's kind of interesting to see how, we probably won't ever know. But I imagine that number in terms of the fines will continue to increase here because I think the league, obviously it's single entity ownership here. So MLS technically owns Austin FC, but the league, because of that, and even if they didn't, the league has a vested interest in Austin getting fair asking price in this deal, because that would just be if not, that would be a signal to clubs around the globe that, hey, you can come bully these MLS teams for their guys when they're not happy. And so I do think that there's going to be a hard line drawn here in terms of these fines. They're going to do, the team in the league, everything possible to exercise their right as per the collective bargaining agreement with the Players Association to make this financially hurt. That you're not going to do this without feeling it from our side as well. Now, again, I don't know how, he's clearly not going to be getting his checks deposited while he's not with the team here. I don't know how you enforce this, going forward if he never sets foot back in Austin.
Yeah.
I don't know how you enforce that, but this is what the team in the league are doing right now. So I just wanted to go through that. And I saw 30 minutes before we recorded, Landon also had posted CBA stuff on the Moon Tower social accounts. I thought we were going to be unique here. Of course not. But, this information is out there for you. And now you got it in the North End.
Look, that was going to be my follow-up question to you. Do you expect to see him back in the 5-1-2?
Never.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes, that's, I think, where we're at this point. We're never going to see him step back into Austin in any sort of facility, any sort of situation. And right to your last point there, with the termination stuff, we are not going to allow it to get to this point where he's going to be terminated and be able to walk for free. Again, both of us are in the same camp that we hold the cards here. In my opinion, we very much hold the cards in this situation. So you're going to have to come to us and pay the roto price if you're going to want to get our boy here. So that stuff is interesting. Again, those fines are pretty minuscule, particularly, because we made Seba a top 5 player in the league, right? $6 million on the books right now, something like that. So it's interesting to see, but yes, we cannot allow the league as a whole to be bullied and then our players to be poached when they want to go back home. That's just, it's not how this situation works. So again, I think that is even more evidence that Austin and the management are in control of this situation. And ultimately it will get done. And I think that it's the main hang up right now is probably where that figure lands and the guarantee of having another guy be able to slot in. and
Yeah.
and go forward with him. So it's ugly, man, and it's just crazy. Like, we're thinking about it, right? And like, for so long, the thought and theory on it was like, he didn't like Wolf, hated playing for Wolf.
Right.
You know what I mean? And now he's gone, and it's like, well, okay, he couldn't do anything because the other DP was Rigoni, and it's like, okay,
Well, who
Rigoni's,
brought him here?
yeah, exactly,
Seba.
exactly. He's gone. Like, so, like, at this point, you have made it look like you were the issue.
Yeah,
because
for
like
sure.
the other dudes are gone, and now,
a issue.
yes,
Yeah.
it wasn't just him. There's been failures up and
Right.
down across the board,
Right.
from Reyna to the coaching staff to players to all of that. But yes, this makes it look like, because the magnifying glass is on you as one of the best players, and like, to your point about replacing him, he just has magic, right? Like, he has all the technical skills that you can find in players, but he also just has, if you want to call it the it factor, the star factor, what have you, he possesses that, which is not something that just grows on trees. You can find super high quality players who have great counting stats, but they also just don't have that little extra that puts them into a category that makes them truly special. So I do think it will be hard to replace that, but not impossible. So this situation has just gotten uglier and uglier and uglier. And then you look back to some of the stuff that he was doing last year, and it did make me kind of feel like, who did we really hitch our wagon to here? Like, who is this guy actually? And I loved your quote about, like, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. I also believe that, when someone's at their lowest, you shouldn't judge them solely based on that. And he was definitely in a bad spot right there. Like, suspended at home, clearly not in a good mental space. If you're fucking on your phone, looking at tweets from bozos on the internet, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you're on Twitter instead of watching your teammates.
Yeah, clearly not in the right headspace there. So, like, this situation will resolve. It is ugly. I don't know if it will get uglier, but I 100% do not ever expect Seba to be back in Austin, Texas.
So let's try to wind down the Driussi talk here. Just a couple other things I wanted to bring up. We did have Cesar Luis Merlot, who all of a sudden has all the Austin information. He reported yesterday on Saturday that Austin rejected River Plate's first bid that was around $7 million. So essentially breaking even on Driussi from where we bought him. I think that number was slightly below. It was like 6.5-ish. And that River Plate will offer again. We've also heard more murmurs from that South American side bandying about that $9 million number that we first heard about last weekend. But we also were excited about the prospect of converting some of this sale into general allocation money and the rule changes that we thought made it possible for that to happen. I want to shout out once again our buddy Long Cow for leading the charge on this, and then Paul Tenorio on Blue Sky Skeeting, and I will continue to call it that. I don't think you're not familiar with the Blue Sky E, so I'll have to educate you. But
Okay.
that's not a tweet. It's a skeet. It's Blue Sky. So Paul Tenorio, in this conversation with a number of Austin fans, I think our buddy, the stat man, Tim Thompson, was also in this thread. But Paul Tenorio here confirming that Austin is very unlikely to be able to convert some of this fee to GAM, because you can convert profit from a designated player sale, but it's difficult to do so because we paid, let's call it the $7 million fee for Seba, and then at least about $5.4 million in base salaries last season. Again, we know that guaranteed comp is a little north of $6 million. So in this transfer, to begin converting profit into GAM, we would have to be, as Paul puts it here on the screen, north of $12.5 million with this transfer fee to do so. But then Long goes a step further, going into this the press release when the rule change happened last year, and this says the general allocation money for designated player transfers following a DP transfer who meets the TAM eligibility parameters, a club may now elect to receive a portion of the fees as GAM. So Driussi is the only one of our three DPs currently that does not meet the TAM eligibility parameters. So Long concluded he doesn't think we can convert any of this regardless of the price. And I intend to agree here with him posting the link to this press release from last winter. So I don't think, again, that doesn't really change my outlook on this situation at all. Would I love to get some GAM from this? Of course. But it makes sense why they kind of close this loophole on the DP transfers thing, or at least make it much, much tougher to actually, you got to recoup the league and the team for the cost you spent on the player. So a little unfortunate, but just wanted to kind of clear that up.
Yeah. And we're not going to get north of 12.5 million for the guy.
Right.
So
Right.
It's
right.
not happening.
Right. And so you kind of hinted at this earlier. The Argentinian international transfer window closes on February 16th, which is the Monday before the season opener here for Austin FC. So we at least have that as a marker on the calendar of the deadline for River to get their stuff in order and meet Austin somewhere in the middle. Because if we don't transfer him to River by then, he's on the roster till summer. We don't have our buyout. So it would have to be mutual termination. And again, that doesn't seem likely with the investment Austin has made in the player. They are set. Of course they are set on getting money back for him in a sale here. So look, I guess to close this out, he's definitely gone. I hope this is resolved as quick as possible in as beneficial a way for Austin FC as possible. And we know that Roto is already looking into other DPs. Like I know the natural comparison here is the Reynoso situation, where like Reynoso had more serious personal issues going on when he did not return to Minnesota. But in terms of the roster and the effect his absence had on Minnesota, like similar situation. But also you look at Minnesota last year, dude, they ended up just fucking fine. And Timu Pukki was also hurt and they still made the playoffs and they made some great summer signings and they were fine. I think our roster, even as it stands now, subtracting Driussi, is in a better spot than Minnesota's was to begin last year. So again, even if this doesn't resolve, I think we're fine. Ideal, far from it. But yeah, anything else for you on Driussi? Because we can transition here into one of the designated player rumors who might be a Seba replacement.
It just fucking sucks. Let's talk about somebody new and exciting.
Yeah. So this report, I'm trying to remember when this actually came up first. I can get probably a quick scroll here. January 8th. So it looks like Wednesday of last week. We got the first news or rumor rather from a journalist named Rafael Lamelas over there in Spain. And the rumor is that Austin FC made an offer for 29-year-old Albanian winger Mirtu Uzuni. Uzuni is currently under contract with Granada, and Granada is in La Liga 2 right now. They were relegated, I believe, after the 2023 season, but Uzuni was there through all of that. This is a very, very goal dangerous player here. You can see that, again, the transfer market information is not gospel, but the transfer market valuation is $5 million. His highest market value was in March of this past year, and that was $10 million. So you can see when they were in La Liga or coming out of La Liga and were relegated, that his market value was at his career high. He is, like I mentioned, 29 years old. He would turn 30 right around the mid-season point here in MLS if he joined Austin FC. I believe I read that he has a release clause that is $15 million. Might have been 12. There's a lot of numbers floating around in my head these days. But what I did want to point out, because there is a $15 million release clause on Driussi, is that a release clause is not like that can be waived by a team in the case of the two clubs entering into an agreement for a transfer. The release clause, as I understand it, and I believe we talked about this in the summer for some sort of rumor, but that is a number where if we had, let's say that release clause is 15 and not 12 for Uzuni, if we offered 15, then Granada would, I think contractually, have to let us negotiate with the player. And that's why those release clauses are typically set well above the market rate, so you can ensure if a team comes in with a crazy offer like that you will be profiting. There was also a Driussi-esque situation with Uzuni over the last couple weeks. There was a report that said he was not training with Granada because Austin was going to double his salary if they got that transfer done and he wanted to come here. Now, there has been other posts, again, in various languages that I can speculate on, but like I don't think we need to dive all the way into that here. Let's talk a little bit more about, like, again, I think if this becomes more real, we can talk about, do we have any concerns about Azuni doing something that we are, shitting on Driussi for doing right now. I guess I think there is a slight difference there where like Azuni is reportedly holding out from training because he's going to get his salary doubled. The reports are Driussi is going to take a pay cut to leave Austin, right? So slightly different there. But I mentioned how goal dangerous he is. He's also a member of the Albanian national team, 38 caps for Albania since 2018 with 5 international goals. So when Granada was in La Liga in 2023, he had 11 goals that season in La Liga. That sounds pretty good if you were to bring somebody like that over to Austin FC. In the current La Liga 2 season, he has 14 goals and 1 assist in 18 games. So this is like one of the top attacking players in La Liga 2 right now. That is the type of player profile that comes over to MLS and kills, right? Like second division over there in Europe, one of the best players. You bring him over on a relatively modest, 10 million or less, I would assume here for Azuni. And then, so if we just add up the last 3 seasons of Azuni combined with Granada, so La Liga 2, La Liga, and then about half a La Liga 2 season here at present. 90 appearances, 48 goals, 7 assists. Doesn't like to pass a ton, but like, I think we have guys that can pass. Like, we need guys that can fucking score, and Azuni absolutely can. So what's your initial reaction here? And again, you do not take transfer market as gospel. But however they calculate this, and I'm sure it's the wisdom of the fucking community, but probability of transfer market puts it at 83%.
Yeah, that's the first thing that caught my eye in this whole page here. I was like, oh, they're giving out a percentage of transfer probability figures. That's it. That's interesting. Don't know a ton about the guy outside of what you've just expressed here and briefly dabbling in pages similar to this.
Right.
I'm interested, right? Because he profiles as a left winger. Right.
Yeah. He also can play some center forward, second striker.
Can move around.
For our roster profile, this would be starting left winger, you would think. And maybe we're not playing with wingers. I don't like, you can do that. But he is an attacker in the truest sense of the word.
Yes. And it just, I don't know if I'm still got like PTSD from the Fafa thing, but like obviously the new Fafa kind of profiled same positions and everything. Like, was this already in the works? Is this coming about more and like gaining steam and traction because of the Seba situation and the writing on the wall here? So again, yes, coming over to get your salary doubled, I think that's a great incentive to want to be in Austin and, be in the MLS, make some more money and probably go up against some lesser competition. Sounds like a good deal for me if I was Azuni here. So like you said, very goal dangerous. We need dudes who can score goals. We have consistently the last 2 seasons been one of the most disappointing offenses in the entire MLS. So this is exciting to see here. And, you start to look at that attacking profile. You got Vazquez. You could bring in this Azuni guy here. You got Buka as well, who I feel like has just kind of been lost in this entire saga that we've had going on this offseason. Like, we're going to get a full season out of him here. He's getting a full camp with us and everything. That in itself is exciting. So this is great to see. And it just looks like we're trying to build a much more offensively potent offense for Coach Nico to work with here.
Yeah, there's no question. And again, like I find it a little bit interesting as the, relative soccer novice here when it comes to the tactics and formations and things like that. Like to replace Seba with a player that profiles like this, would we then turn around and go get a Max Tam type of central midfielder, a 10 as it were?
Yeah,
maybe
distributor.
But again, like you don't have to play with somebody like that. So I think that's something that I want to look into personally over the next week or two, is like, especially with maybe like looking into more of the Spanish style of football. Like, do they tend to play without a 10 more often than other places around the world? I don't know. But, we clearly have like, our buddy Profe, I think, was joking they're going to rename it the Austin Conquistadors just because of how many Spaniards we have around here. But this is one, obviously, we'll be watching. I don't know if I put this at an 83% like transfer market does. But there is certainly a little bit of smoke around this rumor.
Absolutely.
I do think we're going to get green smoke this week for this next rumor, Ian. This is something we have been waiting on for a while. Nicholas Dubarsarski. The first report about Dubarsarski, we actually ignored. It was on December 30th, and the report was, I believe, from CL Merlot again, who said that Austin offered for Dubarsarski, and his current team is Instituto ACC down there in the Argentinian First Division. And I believe that number that was rejected was like 2 to 2.5 million. Friday morning, Merlot comes back with a report that Austin FC is nearing a deal for 20-year-old Argentinian midfielder Nicholas Dubarsarski. Again, playing in that Argentinian First Division. The report is a $3 million transfer fee for 80% of the player's rights, which again, that's what happens when you're transferring these young prospects. Dubarsarski is 20, and he just turned 20. So we'll talk about U22 mechanisms here in a second. Also reportedly a 4+1 deal, which would tie obviously Dubarsarski to the team for as long as Brandon Vazquez is. So almost like this new core window that Roto is setting up here. And because he's 20, right? Like obviously profiles as the U20 as a U22 slot player, but because he's younger than 21 throughout the duration of next season, he doesn't come in for that 200K cap hit. His would be 150 next year. So like, again, it's not a huge difference, but like we had to give up 50K GAM to San Jose for the waiver trade for Brandon Vazquez. Okay, we saved 50K on the cap by getting Dubarsarski when he's 20. So again, it's like little pieces of math here or there in the cap sheet that you can see being manipulated by Roto. And also like getting a guy like this who's 20 on potentially under club control for 5 years, which he would be a U22 through all of that. So the biggest cap hit we would see from Dubarsarski on this first deal, 200K, that's pretty great if he pans out. And if he pans out, then you turn around at the end of that deal. Maybe you keep him around. But I think the ideal scenario is he improves enough where you sell him for a significant profit. And then 4 or 5 years from now, there's your $3 million in GAM. If we can, year after year go Danny, then Owen, then Dubarsarski, or whatever, if you can make that big sale of a young player year after year, you can dominate this league from a roster build and cap perspective. And we haven't even talked about this guy. Like I do think, again, I think we're going to get smoke here this week. So I want to save like some of his highlights and the more in-depth talk about his kind of skill profile. But like from what I've seen, he and a little bit of help from our friends or our friend Logan Okwa, who is familiar with the player. Like he just kind of seems like an improved, younger and cheaper Johan Valencia.
And when we were doing all of our offseason, talks about the roster and how we would want to see this get built out and everything, we put a ton of emphasis on these U22 positions, right? The DP players, the Vazquez, that's your splash. That's your shiny thing that you throw up there. But these guys, when you hit on these guys, you build sustained success going forward, because the goal is ultimately to get them in here on that cap figure. That's a very, very low hit, have them develop, move them on, and then reload at that position again. The position being the U22 initiative slot. So like when you see a name like this is so exciting to me, to the nerds who look at all of the cap figures, how all this stuff works, because this is the profile of a young stud that you can get in here who will not only be impactful right away in terms of short-term goals of being successful in terms of wins and accumulating points, but also as a long-term prospect where you can make a significant profit on this dude and then reload it. Now, obviously, that's the most ideal situation. He comes in, he plays great. None of that is guaranteed. But when you're looking at it in terms of as like a theory, this is how you want to continue to keep this roster afloat, alive, and just like really healthy. So I'm incredibly excited about this. An upgraded Johan would be fantastic. I don't know if he's a hacker or what have you, but this is exciting. And we knew the DP9 was coming. We knew that we opened up these U22 initiative spots to make sure that we filled them. So like all this is slowly coming together here, and it's just really enjoying to see.
Yeah, man. He's like the one thing he differs from with Johan. Like Johan was squat, right? He's pretty small. Dubasarski's a little over 6'1". So like, I do think
like
from just like watch.
Almost.
Yeah, sure. And like I don't know, man. Like there's from watching the highlights, and you know what we say about highlights, right? It's everybody's best plays. So everybody looks good on their highlight tape. But like, look, man, in like these superhero franchise movies, right? Superheroes get recast. So like we could have our next Punisher on our hands here. We'll have to see. Like he has to go out there and punish before you get dubbed, you know, the Punisher here in the North End, but he profiles as one, man. And so like I'm really hoping at some point this week we get to fire up the live stream and really dive a little bit deeper into Dubasarski and what this move can mean.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and from the limited things that I've seen, also talking to some folks, listening to you speaking with Logan about him, it's the distribution, right? It's the transition from we just got to stop, which was great when Johan did it, but it was also very difficult for Johan to get the ball off of his foot to our team again. So like having a dude who can go ahead and distribute like that. And I said, you know, I'm not comparing him to Busquets, but like the size, you see the distribution skills, that sort of talent. Like, you know, and that's usually a very sustainable type of talent. You know, like the goals can be a much more of a hit or miss kind of thing. It's a game of inches, but when you have a player who can consistently distribute the ball, transition your team from defense into offense, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will pick back up on the Dubasarski talk when it is appropriate. Let's keep it pushing here. First thing I want to talk about going forward is the preseason schedule. The full preseason schedule was released, so we know the team reported to camp yesterday for their medical evals. They had their beep test this morning, or as Profe wants me to call it because he's old, the pacer test. Right? Look, we're trying to stay hip with the kids here. They call it the beep test now. I've heard both. Anyways, full preseason schedule. We are 9 days away from the first official preseason game. This will be out once again in Clearwater, Florida. The team will travel there to play Tuesday, January 21st and Friday, January 24th against the New England Revolution and the Charleston Battery. Then they'll come back to Austin. We will get our now annual matchup against Louisville City FC on Saturday, February 1st. I assume by then we'll know Damian's fate for 2025. Maybe he goes back to the other bench for this scrimmage. We'll see. Damian, of course, did report yesterday. And then we go out to Coachella for a trio of games, Wednesday, February 5th against the Galaxy, Saturday the 8th against St. Louis City, and Wednesday the 12th against Charlotte FC. And then on Saturday, the week before the opener, we're back at Q2 taking on Nashville in the final of these 7 preseason matches. But none of these matches in Austin are open to the public. So it's just the open training we get next Sunday. You know, I think there are other sneaky kind of ways you can maybe catch some of these games, but we're not going to publicize those here. So players reported yesterday on Saturday. We had a couple first day crumbs. It is crumbs season here in the North End. So, of course, on report day, we start maybe seeing a couple number changes, and we did get some confirmed. First, we see Ilie Sanchez wearing the 6. So, Danny, no longer the 6. I do think there was maybe a chance that Danny, he could have just given it to him, or maybe Danny wants one of the vacated numbers. And so he gave the 6 up. But, you know, it is traditional in sports sometimes where the veteran comes in, wants his number, somebody else has it. Give him a little bit of a couple bucks to give up the number. So Ilie will wear number 6. We also see a picture of Diego Rubio wearing 21. That's Alexander Svatak's number. So we know Svatak will have a new number and Diego wearing 21. Then we get another video from the club. Svatak is wearing number 5. So maybe Svatak going to be the new Punisher. I don't know. We'll see. But he's wearing 5. So we've got 2, 8, 13, 14, 16 because of Hector, and 20 because of Bersano, and presumably 10 now open in the near future. I think it would make sense that Danny might be going to the 8, maybe the 10, but Seb is also not gone yet officially, so like nobody can officially take the 10. I think my money's on Danny being number 8 this season. And speaking of Danny, don't want to leave this out of today's episode. He gets called up to Venezuela's January camp. So he will play the U.S. men's national team. Again, that is the January roster. So it's kind of the, it's like 3rd and 4th string guys in terms of the U.S. national team. But on next Saturday in Fort Lauderdale on the 18th. So Danny will not be at open training, which I would rather him, I think, be playing with the national team against the U.S. guys because we can see Danny all year. I'm fine if he's got to miss the open training there. But I think my money is on him wearing 8 this year.
Yeah, that's where my mind went as well. And congrats to Danny for sure. Go get him, bud.
Then we also get the beep test today. So it looks like Antonio Gomez is back with the first team. And it looks like our 2 draft picks are there as well. You see Riley Thomas on his Instagram posting a picture from the locker room at the training facility. And then you get, look like we got some crumbs of Patrick Grzyuski, I think is how we say that. Our 3rd round pick looked like he was out there this morning as well. Other crumbs that we've gotten, this not really, certainly not North End crumbs, but a little bit of a kit leak here again. Here's what the Austin FC new home jersey looks like, E. And look, this, first of all, this is a replica kit, and it is quite wrinkled there in this photo. So it's not great. And I will tell you, I see your face, and that I think my reaction to you was like, no way, when I sent you this picture. Yeah. And I gotta say, man, over the last like 5 or 6 days, this is growing on me. Here's another footy headlines. They recreated this kit in like a kit designer app or what have you. So this one, again, this is this digital rendering here, but this looks better to me. And I think overall it's growing on me because my first reaction was so negative because I've made it known here on the podcast that I want a majority black kit at some point. Mm-hmm. I thought we were going to get it this year. So I'm a little bit disappointed in that sense. But like, I don't hate this as much as I initially did.
I'm going to buy one, so I'm not going to get upset about it. It's damn near impossible to make me look bad. So you can throw this on me, what have you. Yeah. I'll buy one. I'll be there. Don't worry about it, but not my favorite.
Yeah. Well, so again, it's not what I expected, but this does appear to be what we are getting here for the next 2 seasons as our home kit. And again, I think it's continuing to grow on me. So I'm sure by the time they do the kit release party in February, I will be ready to open up my wallet as well.
Hell yeah.
Let's move on here. Last note on the first team stuff today, E. We talked about Hector Jimenez, gave him his send-off as he bid farewell to the Austin FC family last week. He has now joined Greg Berhalter's staff with the Chicago Fire. So that's why he didn't stick around here. He's going, getting into that U.S. national team coaching tree, or ex-national team coaching tree there. But Hector up there with Chicago. So, again, good luck to him unless we have to see them at some point.
Wish him well.
Come on down to Farmer Field where the champions play. Get ready for the game. It's last business day.
Last business day here on episode 195, and we do have some official news here, E. Austin FC 2 confirms the signing of Vlad, and I will continue to call him Vlad until the team proves that they know how to pronounce his last name. Because in this press release, there is no pronunciation guide, but Austin FC 2 announced on Thursday that the club signed Vlad to the Next Pro roster. He's 18 years old, 2-year deal through the 2026 season with a team option for 2027. He's a dual citizen, as we mentioned last week, of the United States and Romania. He's made 8 youth national appearances for the Romanian U19 team, played on youth teams for various clubs in Germany and Italy, of course, most recently for the U20 side of Udinese. formerly resided in Illinois, and played for Soccer's FC Chicago, which is an MLS Next club, right? That's like the academy level in Illinois there. And we also have a rumor about another kid who's playing over in Europe. Daniel Cielsa is a 20-year-old center back, who also holds an American passport. He was born in Chicago, in Illinois there, where Vlad also played in his youth. Cielsa is currently playing in the Polish second division, but the rumor is that Austin is nearing a deal for Cielsa as well, or Austin FC2 rather. So looks like we're bringing, again, these guys who have European experience in second divisions and youth divisions, who hold American passports. There are international slots on Next Pro rosters. So Roto bringing some domestics apparently back home here, or back to one of their homes. And we will learn more about these guys, I'm sure, in the coming weeks.
Yes. Welcome, Vlad. And we'll see about this other rumor here. But again, you're starting to see a bit of this profile that we're trying to hone in on here to build out these rosters at the Austin FC2 level.
And then we had Nico Aristizabal called up once again to the Puerto Rican U17s this month. So congrats again to Nico. And then a couple ex-FCito notes that I wanted to talk about here. Just the Clausura in Liga MX began this weekend. First, we saw Cristo Vela make his first team debut for Club America on Friday night. And I don't mean to have that tone, but I was like, what? And so Club America, apparently, I think they've won the last 3 playoffs. They at least won the Apertura. I know that for a fact, that they gave most of their first team, their main guys, extra weeks off because they have such a short break between their multiple seasons every year. So they had a number of academy guys in this game. I think it was 6, maybe more than that. But Cristo comes on, plays, and they did get the win. So congrats to Cristo there on his debut. And then last night for Atlas, Alonso Ramirez makes his Atlas first team debut. I believe they also won, but congrats to those guys. And it also makes me think back to the 2023 Next Pro roster, with those guys and Las and Hafferty and Noel and how stacked that fucking roster was for the Next Pro level. So congrats to those guys on their first team debuts down there in Mexico.
Absolutely. That's super exciting. And, I've loved Lonzo for a long time, so I'm really happy to see that.
Then we have an academy update to close out episode 195. The games yesterday for the 13s, 14s, and 15s were all played a year up. So we do get U13s, they lose 4-3, 14s lose 4-2, and 15s lose 2-1. But not only were we playing up in these games, all of our teams had 3 to 4 trialists playing, and most of the kids were being played 20 minutes at a time or so, since it was the first game back after the 3-week holiday break that the academy guys got. So kind of getting back into the swing of things here, but to put up 13s and 14s, multiple goals against older clubs, and then the 2-1 for the 15s. It seems like they did at least okay for themselves coming back off the holiday break.
Held their own for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that I can't believe we discussed this all in under an hour, but we got it done, And look, man, I don't think that the news, especially with the Driussi situation ongoing, the news is not going to slow down over the next couple of weeks. And again, this time next week, we will be back here recapping our experience at the open training. So it's all starting.
Yeah. Keep those notifications on because there's going to be news coming down the pipeline here. Stuff's going down. So it's exciting, but right now we got to go.
Anything else for you, before we shut it down?
No, I'll stop there.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us here on episode 195 of the North End Podcast. We will be back next Sunday, recapping everything that happens in the Austin FC universe between now and then. And of course, if there's big news in the middle of the week, we will pop up on a live stream. So make sure you have those notifications turned on. Enjoy the beginning of your week, everybody. we will do the same, and we'll see you back here next Sunday for another episode of the North End Podcast. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.